All right, so before I let you guys know what my issues are with this camera, I think we need to get sort of like a baseline test done of what this camera can do in its different ISO settings. I'm not going to be doing this in the 10-bit normal. This is only going to be in D-Log and D-Log 2. So we're going to start at the base. This is D-Log in ISO 400. The shutter speed is going to be the same for all these shots. It's going to be 1/60th of a second. I am going to be throwing ND filters and adjusting this light in front of me to try to keep the same exposure. But the goal of this is to show you guys what these images look like as the ISO goes higher, to see how much grain we get in the shadows. So again, this is ISO 400. This is the wide lens, and this is the 3x zoom. So right away you're seeing the first issue, and I'll talk about this at the end of the video. But yeah, that is we're in manual mode and it still has that overexposure issue. So again, ISO 400, D-Log, all this is 1/60th of a second. Let's go to the next ISO. This is ISO 800 in D-Log. Again, trying to get the same exposure. So my meter is at 0 here. I'm not sure if the meter is a spot meter or if it's reading the whole scene. I don't have my hair light on for this because I didn't want that to sort of overexpose the shot a little bit. But this is ISO 800 in the wide lens, and this is ISO 800 in the zoom lens. Doing that same thing again. Next ISO. This is ISO 1600 in D-Log. I now have the ND8 on the lens, but the ND filters that I'm using are the ones from Freewell. This is not a sponsored video. I paid for these with my own money. I also bought the camera with my own money. And again, this is 1600 in the wide lens and in the zoom lens. Same issue still. Next ISO. All right, this is ISO 3200 in D-Log. I have the color temperature set and locked at 5000 Kelvin. So I should hopefully get the same color accuracy in all these shots. Again, I'm trying to get a consistent shot here. So my meter is at 0 and I did turn down the power on this light. This is 32,000 in the wide lens and in the zoom lens. Next ISO. This is ISO 6400. This is the highest that you can go in D-Log. This is in the wide lens and this is in the zoom lens. Still having that exposure shift. So next, let's move on to D-Log 2. All right, so now we're in D-Log 2. This is ISO 100. It's the lowest that you can go in D-Log 2. I'm not going to switch into the 3x zoom lens because in D-Log 2, you can only record in the wide angle lens. There's no ND filter on the lens right now, but I do have my light almost at full strength. All right, next ISO. This is ISO 200 in D-Log 2. Shouldn't be much of a difference in the shadows here. Next ISO. This is ISO 400. Still no ND filter on the lens, but I did lower the light to about 10%. So this is probably a huge difference from the regular skin tones that you have been seeing. But at 400 ISO, the image should still be pretty clean. Next ISO. This is ISO 800, and I now have the ND filter on. This is the ND8 on the lens. And I will say that I had to throw it on earlier in D-Log 2 than I did in regular D-Log. In regular D-Log, I threw on the ND filter at ISO 1600. So it's interesting that I'm having to throw it on earlier here to get an exposure of 0 from the meter. But at 800 still should be pretty clean. Next ISO. All right, this is ISO 1600. I now have the ND16 filter on the lens. Again, this is in D-Log 2. Next ISO. And this is ISO 3200. This is the max in D-Log 2. I have the ND32 filter on. I'm definitely finding that lighting is metering a little differently in D-Log 2. But again, this is the max in D-Log 2. This is 3200. So now I'm going to throw these files into DaVinci. I'm going to pixel peep for myself before I let you guys know my thoughts. I'll be back in 1 sec. All right, so I've gotten a chance to look at the files. The grain in the higher ISOs wasn't as bad as I was expecting. I was expecting it to be really bad, especially because it's still a 1-inch sensor. But considering it's a 1-inch sensor, the noise still isn't that bad. I should mention that I was shooting at -2 texture and -2 noise reduction just to get the cleanest image out of the DJI Pocket 4P. I'm not really sure why I had those mic issues at the end because the mic is charged and was charged to 100%. It just decided to disconnect for the last couple clips. This leads me to one of my first issues with the Pocket 4P vlog combo. It doesn't come with a mic 3, it comes with the new Mic Mini 2, which the Mic Mini 2s are a great mic. There's just no internal recording on this. So if something like that happened and the mic disconnected from the camera, I can't use backup recording on the mic itself. So it's just weird to me that they chose to put this mic with the Pocket that's supposed to be more pro. And just to get it out the way now, the vlog combo did not come with the battery extender grip, and it also did not come with the wide angle lens attachment. Those are my issues with that specific the vlog combo. But with the camera itself, when I originally did the unboxing, I was expecting a little bit better. I mean, the few things that stood out to me were the fact that there's such a big jump in exposure when you switch to that 3 times lens, even if you're shooting in manual. It's something that wouldn't be an issue if I had a variable ND filter. For example, if I knew that the 3 times lens runs a little bit overexposed, maybe a stop and a half, then I can just adjust that with the VND on that top lens. And you wouldn't even notice it when I'm actually zooming from the wide angle lens to the 3 times lens. It's something that I'm assuming that DJI will fix with the firmware update. I'm hoping at least. I did try off camera to sort of like see if the 3 times lens has like its own sort of setting. So I tried to set the settings in the 3 times lens and then zoom out. And then the wide angle lens was underexposed. So from seeing that, I think I just came to the conclusion that the 3 times lens does run overexposed to the 1-inch sensor. You can't shoot in log in slow mo. There's also no HDR in this camera. But what I think is a little strange is that is D-Log 2 capable of HDR? You know, that 17 stops of dynamic range, that seems like it should be capable of keeping a lot of those highlights and some of those deeper shadows. So I wouldn't be surprised if you can edit HDR footage in D-Log 2. Also, not being able to shoot D-Log 2 in both lenses, I think like it just it's something that the Luna Ultra, similar to how in 8K with their Dolby Vision, it can only be done in the wide angle lens, can't be done with their second sensor. So very similar to the D-Log 2. So I'm assuming that D-Log 2 here is sort of like a weird HDR sort of log format. They just haven't called it that. I'm not really sure why, because I'm pretty sure that some of DJI's drones are capable of shooting in HDR with the same camera orientation. So I'm, hoping that once the global release happens, that we'll get more information on that if it is actually able to do HDR. And I'm hoping that's just something that the Luna Ultra doesn't have over it, the fact that it can do HDR and the 4P can't. But my absolute biggest issue with this camera is the manual settings in log. Now, hear me out, because I am very happy to actually get regular D-Log in this. The D-Log M that's in these cameras is a 10-bit log format. So it's great that we have it in this. But when we're shooting in log in this, I'm able to adjust the ISO range in manual. So you can see here that I'm in manual mode. My shutter speed is locked at 1/200th of a second, and my range on the ISO is 100 to 800 ISO. Now, the reason why I like having that feature on these sort of like smaller cameras is because when I'm shooting on these smaller cameras, keeping the ISO range low gives me just a cleaner image. Now, as we just saw at the beginning of this video, the picture in the images of the higher ISO ranges in this camera aren't that bad, but it's still sort of like a rule of thumb for a lot of people that use this camera and that also use the Pocket 3. So it just makes no sense to me that I can get a range of ISO in this camera, in my Action 6, in the Nano, but I can't get a range on this. So in this camera, if I'm in manual and I'm shooting in D-Log, the only range that I get is that 400 to 6400. So there's no option for me to keep the ISO range lower. Now, if I'm shooting in normal 10-bit without a log, I get those ISO ranges back. So it does have the ability to do it, but for some reason, when I'm in D-Log and when I'm in D-Log 2, I'm not able to get those ranges. In D-Log 2, you don't even get an option to set an ISO range. In manual, you just get an option of 100 ISO all the way up to 3200 ISO, which is fine. And like in that D-Log 2 log format, it makes sense because it's the more higher end format. I'm already assuming that it's the HDR format because it can't shoot above 3200 ISO. I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong, but that's just sort of like what I personally think it is. I still think this is a really great camera. It's not as easy to use in log as this one. And maybe it's because they chose to put regular D-Log in this over D-Log M, but the fact that we have both of these lenses and we can't use the lower end ranges of ISO in this, and also, the issue with the exposure with the 3x lens, it feels limiting right now. So with the firmware update, if there's going to be a future firmware update that fixes this, I would love to see those lower ISO ranges in D-Log. But if not, I'd prefer just to throw D-Log M in this as well, because I know with D-Log M, it will be in all formats. I'll be able to shoot in slow-mo in D-Log M. I'll be able to shoot with the lower ISO ranges in D-Log M. I'll be able to use it in both lenses in D-Log M. But for some reason, with the D-Log format, it's not as versatile, at least in manual. That's my only issue here is I'm picking on this camera in manual. If you're not shooting in log, this camera's great. I think you can still shoot it in the standard color profile. I really like the movie film tone that comes out of this. And I think they spend a little bit more time keeping in mind that most people that get this camera will not shoot in log. They will just shoot in auto. And if you're picking this camera up and you're not going to be shooting in log and you don't care about D-Log or D-Log 2 and you only want a good camera, it's a great camera. I'm complaining as someone that uses DJI's cameras and is used to, taking it into DaVinci Resolve and color grading it and like pushing and pulling it in different ways. This camera, as of right now, it, as much as I hate to say it, it hasn't earned that P behind the 4 yet. I'll keep digging into this. I'll take it out and I'll actually shoot some more high dynamic range video with this camera. But I'm glad that we got to test the ISO settings and seeing how noisy the images got in those higher ISOs. Other than that, I'm really hoping that I can get a variable ND filter for that top lens, because the fact that it's a stop and a half overexposed, I'm really just thinking about popping out the bottom lens in this ND filter just so it's darker in the top one. And hopefully that'll just solve my issue with the overexposed picture. But we'll see. It's really hard to get accessories for this camera right now. Obviously, because it's not available in the States, it's really hard for me to get my hands on stuff. It was hard enough to get my hands on the camera in the first place. So we'll just have to wait and see what DJI does. But that's it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys on Monday. But until then, keep shooting. Peace.